Hey everybody, this is going to be a long video. I want to warn you right now. I don't know how long it's going to take. It may take an hour and a half. But what I'm doing is I'm starting a reparational tree, and I want you to see how it is that I start it. In this particular case, I'm working on Sandra Bland, and there is a documentary on Hulu about her called Say Her Name, The Life and Death of Sandra Bland. So what I'm doing is just by watching this movie, this documentary, I'm pulling details about her birth date and her death date and stuff like that, and the names of her siblings, and that will start the tree. From there, I'm going to go and we'll do this together tomorrow. Well, technically it's today. In our first teach-in about reparational genealogy, we're going to use Sandra Bland's tree as a way of learning how to work a tree, and specifically how to work a tree and jump that generation of people who are still alive to try to get back to the folks who are deceased or who are on the 1940 census. That's the challenge always when you're dealing with a recent death. And increasingly, I am working lynching trees that are about people who have been lynched within the past 5 to 7 or so years during the Black Lives Matter movement, as it has been known to the American public, to the larger public. So what I've got so far, let me show you. I'm going to go up to the edit pencil, quick edit. I do know that, excuse me, having seen her headstone revealed, that her name is Sandra Annette Bland, and her family said she's called Sandy. So I put that in there. And I pulled her birth date from the headstone. And so far I have Illinois because she talked about going to school in Illinois in a video that she placed herself on YouTube shortly before she went down to Texas and was murdered by police. And then I pulled her death date from a combination of looking at the headstone, although that was a little hard to see, and the description of when she was arrested, which was the 10th of July, and the day that her body was found, quote unquote, by police in jail, hanged. And that's the 13th of July. And I know that she died in Harris County, and I know that she was on her way to Texas. So that tells me she was in Houston or the Houston environs. So that's how I have the data that I have right now. And her siblings are being interviewed one by one. So I knew first off to just add her a dad named Bland. And then mom's name right now, I don't have a maiden name and a subsequent married and all that kind of stuff. I don't know which is which, because in Black naming culture, women tend to hyphenate their names, maiden hyphen married. So I think her name is Geneva Reed, and she has a subsequent husband to Mr. Bland called Mr. Veal, but I'm not positive about that yet. So I want to let that ride for the moment. I have added her two siblings, and they are Shantae Needham, who I believe to be a Bland, and Sharon Cooper, whom I also believe to be a Bland. And I'll show you how it is that we find data on folks who are alive in a little while. But you're going to hear the documentary in the background as I'm watching, okay? And I may do a little searching on screen, and you may see it as I'm hearing and seeing the documentary. So you're going to get a number of pieces of information sort of coming at you from a number of different directions. This is how I work a tree. This is exactly how I do it. I'm literally sitting in bed under the covers right now with the TV on in my bedroom, and it's 1:04 in the morning, and this is what I do. Okay, here we go.
Really bad. And I could hear her talking to the guards in the background. Then she said, "I'll call you back." And she hung up the phone, and she never called back. I wouldn't wish this hurt on anyone. Anyone.
Okay, it says on screen this is the Waller County Jail in Hempstead, Texas.
This was found in her cell, and that ambulance and medical help was being called. Then I was notified. When I walked back to the cell, the justice of the peace was already here.
Okay, so that's the jail cell that she died in was there.
Said the Texas sheriff, that's the last thing we want in our jail is doctor everybody to come in here and leave here the same way they come in, if not healthier.
So now I have a death place. And this is hard, don't get me wrong. This is very hard to watch and very upsetting. But this is the work that we do in order to uplift their names.
Hanging at the jail. And I said, well, we had a hanging at the jail. As far as I know, the Texas Rangers are handling it. And that's about all I know. They'll give me a report when they finish it. It got a lot stranger. It was either that afternoon or the next morning. Everything hit the proverbial fan.
So they're showing the bystander video of her arrest, where they have her face down on the ground.
Am I on public property?
Police say Bland was arrested for resisting arrest and assaulting an officer, but so far, the only video of the incident shows Bland on the ground. I don't believe I saw the bystander video until it was released to the public, which was Tuesday. I couldn't understand why she
This is Sharon Cooper.
in her back. I could not understand that. As a sister, my heart, it hurts.
Okay, roll over.
I can't even fucking feel my arm.
Tuck your knee in. Tuck your knee in. Listen, you're going to sit up on your butt.
Slam my head into the ground.
Sit up on your butt.
Listen to how he's telling you to get up. I can't even dance. Yes, you can.
Sit up on your butt.
Head into the ground.
Sit up on your butt.
What the hell?
Now stand up.
I'm finna for a traffic signal. I swear to God. All of that for a traffic signal. Thank you for recording. Thank you for a traffic signal. Slam me into the ground and everything.
So, of course, when the bystander video comes out, now I have a ton of questions because my mind goes to, okay, what happened before all of that to get her to the point where she's down on the ground with this guy towering over her? And how do you go from this very strong woman to dead in jail by alleged suicide?
Wow, this is getting me really angry.
See what happens. I'll let you know when he lets me know. He said that he's going to talk to her.
Drive safely.
I'm watching to see who else in the family they introduce, because as soon as it's not helpful, then I'm going to do some
Show me a picture of who you're talking about.
research on my phone.
She showed me a picture of Sandy, and your heart kind of stops and you're in shock. Sandy got rear-ended by a motorcycle on the 5th of April, 2015, and she contacted my office. She had a big personality, and it was a big, bright personality. See, I'm assessing people when I talk to them, trying to figure out what type of witness they're going to be. Is she going to be equipped to think on her feet? She was.
Okay, I'm pausing it here because honestly, this is making me so angry and so upset that I just can't really watch it. And it's not helping me with the work. So this is what happens when you do this work. If you have a heart, you get angry. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Been Verified. And I'm going to go and I want to pull information from her, let's see, Geneva Reed Veal. Let's see. I'm going to look for Shantae Needham first. Okay, so what I'm looking for is I'm looking for birth information and spouse information and other things that I can do to build a nexus of relationships among living people right now. And all I've got for that really is been verified and then Google searches to see if there are articles that have been written about the decedent or the decedent's family. So in this case, I'm looking for Shantae's information. So I'm going to look for Shantae Needham. So I'm going over into Been Verified, which is where I do my people searches. And I'm adding Shantae Needham. I'm going to leave it at all states. I'm pretty sure she lives in Illinois, but at the moment, I'm going to see what happens. And let's see, Shantae Needham, Shantae. All right, I think this is probably her. Let's see what else we've got in terms of aliases and what it pulls up. So this is crucial. Okay, so what have we got? Holy cats, we've got all kinds of addresses, only 2 relatives. Okay, so the first thing you want to do for Shantae Needham is look at that photograph. Well, cancel. Let's look at the personal overview. Now, I'm looking to see if there's anything else. This Shantae Needham has children. This Shantae Needham is black, as I can tell from the photograph. And this Shantae Needham is in Illinois. So where is Willowbrook, Illinois? I don't know. I'm not from Illinois. So what am I going to do? I'm going to open a new tab in Google, and I'm going to look for Willowbrook, Illinois. Oops, got a little extra N there. There we go. So Willowbrook is in DuPage. Okay, DuPage is outside Chicago. I know that from my own family. I have a strong feeling that this is actually the right person. Let's see. We've got lots and lots of numbers. We've got lots and lots of... She lived in Montgomery, Naperville, Chicago, more Chicago. Willowbrook. For a while, she lived in a couple other states, more Chicago. Let's see who her relatives are. McKee Needham would be her child. Let's look at Alexander Davis and see who Alexander Davis is. Now, this is when it gets a little spiderwebby. You start to think, well, if I don't have enough information from this person, let's look at this address, or let's look at this relative. Let's see who all the relatives are. All Davises except for Shantae Needham. So let's back out of here for the moment. Let's look at Makia. Let's see what's present for Makia Needham. What I'm looking for is someone with one of the other surnames that I recognize from this small tree that I've built so far for Sandra. So let's see. That's all she's got. All right, let's just do the really obvious search then. We're going to go back out here and we're going to go for Sandra Bland. And we're going to go to Illinois and search. Okay, Naperville. Let's see, her middle name is Annette. And the ages go up the further you go, and these are obviously too old to be her. She lived in Texas. Let's look at this first one. Deceased. There we go. Okay, now this is where it starts to get good because Sandra Annette Bland, is listed. And she's listed as deceased. So here's the thing. We look at the personal overview and it gives the date of death. And that is July 12, 2015. She actually died on the 13th, but this is in fact the correct person. There you go, Sandra Annette Bland. Okay, we've got her. So here's what we do. We look at her relatives and we start to, there we go, we start to build a tree from this. So in terms of her age, she was 23 when she died. Bobby Bland, living in Texas at age 61, is probably her father. Either that or her uncle. But let's look first at Geneva. We know that Geneva is her mom, right? Because we have it in the tree over here. We go back to where we were. Get rid of that and go back into, I'm going to save this. If I get back to Sandra Bland and look at her family, mom is Geneva Reed Veal. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over to the person report for her and look at her personal overview. Geneva N. Reed. Geneva Bland, Geneva Veal. Okay. And the NMI means no middle initial, so it's kind of weird that it says Geneva N because I think that means no middle initial. So this is what we can get for Geneva. Geneva Reed, Geneva Veal, Geneva Bland. And we're going to look at her relatives and see what they list. Sharon, there's Sharon Cooper. There's Ricky Veal, roughly her age, probably her husband. Okay, so this is what we're doing. This is all very theoretical, and it gets proven or disproven later. I'm saying that her maiden name is Geneva Reed, and that she has a husband named, what did I see? Oh, it keeps trying to pull up my information. Veal. And what did it say his name was? Ricky C. And he's 56. Ricky Seal. Now, here's where it gets hard for me. I have to do math. And that's, so I pull in, it's under productivity, is it not? Where's my calculator? 2020 minus 56 equals 1964. So I have a birth year of 1964. There's Ricky Veal. Okay, now we have her stepdad in place. So now let's go back over to looking at the relatives for Geneva Reed. Looks like she has a brother named Emmett E. Reed Jr., so let's look at him. Okay, he's still alive and he's 54. Emmett E. Reed Jr. So we're going to say, because I believe that her maiden name is Reed, I'm going to add her a dad just with a surname Reed, and that's it. Because you can't add a child or a sibling to a person until you have a parent in place. I hope you guys are following what I'm doing. I'm just doing it just so that it's there for other folks to see. Come on. Yeah, I noticed that. Okay, we adding dad this time? Okay, good. All right, so we're going to add that brother, Emmett E. Reed Jr. That means dad is probably Emmett E. Reed Sr. And again, this is all, and already we've got hints popping. Emmett E. Reed Sr. Save. Okay, Now we've got an add family, which is a son, Emmett E. Reed Jr., and his age is 54. That means he's a year younger than I am, which means he was born in 1966. And we're saving it. Now this is where it starts to get good. Once you start to build the family network, you do get, well, sometimes if you're lucky, you do start to get hints. So let's take a look at this and see what Emmett E. Reed Sr.'s hints are. Nope. 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 I don't believe that's right. The name's not right, so I'm not going with any of that. Nope. 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 Now, if these end up being right, and the Emmett Jr. thing and Emmett Sr. thing doesn't work out, and their dad's name is in fact John W. Reed, these are all in the ignored column here, and I can look at them. So the hints are saved. I don't have to worry about that, right? Let's go back to facts. Let's go to Emmett E. Reed Jr., which would be Sandra Bland's uncle. Family. Siblings. Geneva Reed. So we're going to go back to Geneva then, here. We do that by looking at relatives. Here's Geneva B. Reed, and she is 55, and she is my age, that means. So Geneva was born in 1965. Okay. And as we say, this Emmett E. Reed Sr. being her dad is theoretical because her brother's name is Emmett E. Reed Jr. She has a spouse, Ricky C. Veal, and then she has had a spouse named Bland, and we don't know what his first name is. So that's another thing to look at. Let's look at her relatives. We don't know Siobhan's age, so we can't go there. Adriana Reed is probably her niece, probably Emmett Reed Jr.'s daughter. In Humble, Texas, as they say, not humble, they say Humble, which is in Harris County. So there are definite ties between Texas and Illinois for this family. Let's go back to Sandra, and let's look at all of her relatives. She's got a lot of them. I believe that Bobby Bland is her dad. Let's see. John G. could be. Peter H. could be. Probably her grandfather is Melvin Bland. So let's add Melvin as her grandpa. Because we've got a putative father with a surname Bland in place. So let's go with Melvin Bland Sr. here. Okay. Let's try adding him as putative father Bland's dad. First off, let's look at these hints. That's a family that never left North Carolina. That's not right. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. And the other thing is we want to give him a birth date of roughly the same year as wife Geneva. So we're going to say about 1965. And then we're going to give him a dad. And that dad, we've got to go to facts and then family, and then we can add dad. And that's going to be Melvin Bland Sr., and he died on November 23 of 2007. 23 November 2007. And his name is Melvin. Okay, and let's see what his, and he died in Chicago. Okay, because his last known address was in Chicago, so we'll provide Chicago as his death place. Now, that's all we've got. And it looks like Verda D might be his wife. And the way to be sure about that is, what's her address? Last known address here. In 2006, we've got an address on South Campbell Avenue in Chicago, and that's where he was. That means that must be his wife. So Verda D. Bland is going to be his wife. And while that's running, I'll go over here. Oh, I didn't give him a death place. Shoot. Okay, and that would be spouse Verda D, which is probably the first letter of her maiden name. She's deceased, and we'll get her specs here. Look at that personal overview. She died on March 28 of 2006. And she will have died in Chicago because that is also her last known address. Get that drop out of the way. Okay, so now we've got some starters here. So let's look at some hints for Melvin. Okay, we've got that. Okay, there we go. Haha, he's from Arkansas. Now we're starting to dig back down into the South. This is good news. This is very good news. This is what we want to do. And he was born in 32, which means he's going to show up on the 40 census, probably in Arkansas, since that is where he got his Social Security card, because that's what this record is, the Social Security Death Index. That's a start. And look at that. We've got Melvin Bland in Arkansas marrying Verda Dean Hayes. Hot diggity. Now we're cooking with gas. He's living in 1950 in Warren, Bradley, Arkansas. And on the 15th of February, 1950, in Bradley, he marries Verda Dean Hayes. So now we have her maiden name, hot dang. And she is living in 1950 in Warren, Bradley, Arkansas. I want that full USA added. So there we go. So now the work has begun. And this is very, very important. Now we've gotten, and here we are, look at that. Now we've got some stuff. We know that that's not right because he wasn't from New York. We know that's not right because he wasn't from New York. This will be right because he lived in Chicago. Let's look at this. This says 17 April, and that says 7 April. That's usually a typographical error. I could save that as an alternate, but I'm not even gonna. We'll mess with it later. So this is what I needed to do. I needed to get to be able to jump back to the 1940 census. And if we look at his wife, Verda Dean, She was born in the same year, which means she's going to have a 1940 census hint too. She was born, there we go. Yes, look at that. Ah, delicious. We have parents' names for her. This is what I love. I do love it. We know she's from Warren, Bradley. That was where she got married. And she was born 27 October. And she died then. So mom and dad, it's got to be Jesse, not Jesse's. Lots of typos in those records. So now let's look at the tree. We've got Sandra, and we're working dad's side of the tree. Mom's side, going to be a little bit harder, but we're going to get there. At the moment, though, that's a slightly more difficult place to be. So now we have a good start. So that's how I start a tree. When I'm working on someone who is recently deceased and who, unlike other lynching victims or living informants who can tell me their parents' names or their grandparents' names, we have this jump we have to make where we have to go from someone who's deceased to a generation of living people in Mr. Bland and Geneva to the first generation of people who may be deceased and or are present on the 1940 census, the most recent census that's available. That's how I do that. I wanted you guys to see that, and I'm going to post this in the Discord channel for Reparational Genealogy because I want you to be able to refer to this and to understand this is how we do the construction. Okay? Thanks so much for watching. I'm glad it didn't take us nearly as long as I thought. It's still 31 minutes. Good night.